11 lawyers dismissed an incredible solution. Then a cleaning lady revealed it in just 2 minutes. Maria rose before dawn, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the sleepy town. She donned her well-worn sneakers, ready to face another day of cleaning homes and offices, fueled by the dreams of her immigrant parents. Each sweep of the broom echoed their resilience. Every polished countertop resonated with the values of perseverance that they instilled in her. Yet, as she navigated the same streets, her heart ached with the feeling of invisibility, as if the narrow alleyways and cracked sidewalks swallowed her whole. Today was different. The community center, the soul of her struggling neighborhood, was on the brink of disaster. A posh corporation was threatening to snatch it away, and 11 high-powered lawyers had assembled in the town hall, their polished shoes gleaming as they whispered plans that neglected the voices of the very people the center served. Maria had tried to share her ideas before, only to be met with condescending laughter and unyielding skepticism. Feeling crushed beneath the weight of their dismissive attitudes, she turned to the veterans and mothers who visited the center. Amid their heartfelt stories of hardship and triumph, an idea began to blossom. One elderly veteran recounted how a bake sale had once saved the center from closure. A simple plan, really, local fundraising and volunteer efforts. It ignited something deep within Maria, a spark of hope that felt powerful enough to challenge the suit and tie crowd looming over their dreams. When the meeting resumed, Maria stood tall, heart racing against the backdrop of murmurs and shifting seats. This time, she was not alone. She had gathered the stories of her neighbors, the weight of their struggles in her hands. The atmosphere shifted, doubts mingled with curiosity, and tension crackled like a live wire. Before we continue, a voice in the crowd interrupted, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With renewed fervor, Maria stepped up to the microphone. This center isn't just bricks and mortar. It's where we've laughed, cried, and rallied together. It's our lifeline. Each word slammed into the walls of the hall, causing echoes that mixed with the gasps and murmurs of disbelief. As she spoke, doubt began to creep in. Whispers of her background danced through the crowd, tainting the air with a sense of hesitation. Can a cleaning lady really lead us?
They questioned, eyes narrowing under the weight of assumptions. Just then, a young girl stood up, tears glistening in her eyes. This place helped my family when we were lost. It saved us. That single voice pierced through the stagnant air, sparking a heated debate within the audience. Tension peaked, a palpable wave of uncertainty as the lawyers re-entered, counter-offers in hand, and the fate of the community hung in the balance. Maria's heart raced faster than her thoughts as the crowd shifted, their attention splitting like a well-worn path. Faces transformed from skepticism to hope, and Maria knew the battle was just beginning. What would happen next? Would her community rise to meet this challenge, or would they, once again, fall silent before the might of those in power? The tension in the town hall was electric. Maria's heart thudded in her ears, each beat a reminder that her moment had come. She glanced at the faces before her, familiar ones, filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. The crowd's uncertainty weighed heavily upon her, but the fervor in that young girl's voice echoed inside her like a battle cry. Listen, Maria pressed on, her voice rising above the murmurs. We are not just a bunch of stories collecting dust in this corner. We are living, breathing people. We deserve what this place offers: community, support, and a chance to dream. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the microphone tighter, her palms slick with sweat, but she steadied herself. What if we turn the tables? What if we band together to fundraise, to fight for our home? Behind her, people began to murmur amongst themselves, recalling shared experiences, connections, and the safety the center provided. One by one, the veterans and mothers stood to support her. I'll bake, said one mother, her voice strong despite the years of challenges she faced. We can set up a market. I'll donate my homemade pies. Another man, a retired firefighter, joined in. And I'll organize a barbecue. Let the whole town come together. Maria's heart soared. It was infectious. Their excitement spilled out into the air like the scent of fresh bread baking, a warmth that promised comfort and community. But then the room fell silent again as the lawyers filed in. Their suits were sharp, their expressions colder than when they'd left. Maria's stomach twisted. A taller lawyer cleared his throat, his tone dripping with condescension.
With all due respect, raising a few dollars here and there won't change the fact that the corporation has more resources than your entire community combined. He leaned forward, smirking. And dreams don't pay the bills. Maria felt anger rise within her, mixing with the growing hope swirling around her. She refused to let the words of a suit tear down the walls they were building together. But it doesn't have to be about just the money, she shot back, her voice steady. It's about voices, our voices. Time seemed to freeze for a moment.
One by one, people began to stand and speak out. A grandmother spoke of an after-school program where her grandchildren had thrived. A leather-clad biker revealed how the center had saved him from a dark path. A group of youths shared stories of the friends they'd found and the identities they had discovered. "You think we don't have resources?" Maria exclaimed as their stories blended into a chorus of conviction. "We have each other. We have our hearts, our determination. And yes, money might help, but nothing is more powerful than this community and what we can achieve together." The lawyer's grin faltered, replaced by a frown as eyes turned from him back to Maria. She could see the doubts starting to crumble, like flickering shadows threatened by the dawn. Was this the moment everything changed? Could they really become a voice loud enough to counter the corporate giants? "What happens now?" Maria whispered to herself, striving to hear the replies from the universe. She could feel the eyes of the town upon her, filled with trust, filled with belief. But just as she felt the rush of triumph tethering her closer to her community, a sharp voice cut through the air once more, demanding attention. Has anyone thought about what the corporation will do when they see this backlash? The question hung heavily, threatening to unravel everything they'd just built. Maria's heart sank. The stakes felt higher than ever. What would their powerful adversaries do next? Would they retaliate, quashing the flickering flame of hope before it could ignite into something real? With resolve, Maria looked into the crowd, willing the strength of her neighbors to manifest. In that moment, she knew the fight was far from over. The battle for their center had just begun. The room buzzed with apprehension after the ominous question lingered in the air. Maria scanned the faces around her, worries etched in their expressions. Could she keep their spirits alive? She took a deep breath, instinctively shifting her weight from one foot to the other to ground herself. "Everyone, let's take a moment," she began, her voice steadying despite the chaos in her heart. "What did we just hear? That we're weak? That we don't matter? That's the narrative they want us to believe." Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. She felt the momentum shift again, the flame of resilience sparking back to life. "Let's not forget what we've built together. This center has been here for us through thick and thin, and now we've got something they don't. A hunger for change, a burning desire to protect our community." The lawyer opened his mouth to interject, but Maria continued, her voice rising above him. "You could bulldoze this building tomorrow, but you can't bulldoze our memories, our connections. We are more than this structure. We are the laughter of children, the tears of families, the dreams of a better future." Whispers of encouragement radiated through the crowd. People shifted in their seats, and uncertainty began to morph into determination. It was as though a door had cracked open, inviting fresh air into their hearts. "Who here has a story to share?" she called out, her eyes wide, scanning the audience. She could feel her pulse quickening, ignited by the flickers of hope ignited by her words. An elderly woman rose slowly, her frame fragile, but her spirit was fierce. "My husband built this place with his own hands. It was meant to be a sanctuary," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "And when I lost him, this content helped me heal. We can't let them take it away from us." One by one, others began sharing. A young artist spoke of finding inspiration within those walls. A single father told of safe spaces where his children could play. They stood up to speak, and with each story, the crowd grew louder, drowning out the voices of the lawyers. It was as if a tide of unity surged forth, threatening to wash away the lingering doubt. Amid the uproar, a figure caught Maria's eye. A cleaning lady, someone people often overlooked, stood at the rear of the hall. Her brow was furrowed in thought. For a moment, Maria hesitated, wondering if she would find her voice among all these strong opinions. The woman lifted her hand almost shyly. "Maria," she said when the crowd quieted, "I've been cleaning this place for years. Every day I hear laughter and stories, heartaches and triumphs, but I also see the faces of the people who come here." Her voice was soft but steady, and tension shifted in the room as everyone turned to listen. "There's something I've noticed. Donations and small envelopes that go unnoticed sometimes. The local kids collecting change to help. If we harness that spirit, if we start showcasing what we can do,
Bake sales, concerts, arts and crafts fairs. Imagine what we can raise and how we can turn this place into our home again. Gasps echoed around the hall, followed by murmurs of agreement. A vision began to form, rippling through the gathering. Maria felt a swell of pride and excitement. This everyday hero had just sparked an idea that could turn their struggle into action. "Why don't we take this momentum and run with it?" Maria proposed, her heart racing. "We can create a calendar of events. We can engage everyone. No idea is too small." But just as her hope began to solidify, another voice, the same one that had questioned their resolve, cut through the air, icy and firm. "You honestly believe a big sale can stand against a corporate machine?" The room fell silent again. Maria's heart thudded in her chest. How could she rally her neighbors to challenge such oppressive doubt when they felt so perilous? And there it was, that flicker of fear gripping her again, holding her back. Could they really go up against something so large? As she fought to gather her words, a thought struck her like a lightning bolt. What other hidden strengths did they have?
What if everyone truly banded together, poured their energy and talents into this, into them? "Let's gather ideas," Maria shouted suddenly, breaking the silence. "Let's meet tomorrow to brainstorm. Every voice counts. We are not backing down." With a surge of unity, excitement rippled through once more. The crowd buzzed to life, but across the hall, shadows loomed. People in suits, watching closely, making notes, planning their next move. Would they stand together when the pushback came? Or would fear win once more? As Maria stepped down, exhilaration coursing through her veins, one question echoed in her mind. How far would they go to fight for what was rightfully theirs? The next day dawned bright and full of energy. Maria arrived at the community center early, her heart thumping with anticipation. She'd been up late, jotting down ideas and sketching plans, and now the morning sun felt like a fiery halo around her resolve. As she stepped inside, she noticed a small crowd already gathered, whispering and sharing snippets of excitement. The cleaning lady, whose Maria had just learned was Rosa, stood near the entrance, smiling at those coming in. She had become a beacon of hope, her humble yet powerful words still lingering in everyone's hearts. "Good morning, everyone," Maria greeted as she approached the circle they had formed. Faces turned toward her, all eager and expectant. Today is about more than just bouncing ideas. It's about reigniting a shared vision. With that, Maria pulled out a large whiteboard and marker, ready to capture the sparks of creativity that would surely fly. People began to shuffle closer, their hesitation giving way to the collective energy. "Let's start with smaller events," Maria proposed. "Rosa mentioned bake sales, but what about talent shows? Each week we can have something new. Art exhibits, open mic nights, moments where we can showcase who we are as a community." Nods and murmurs of agreement filled the room, but then a voice cleared from the back. "But how do we make it appealing enough to draw people in?" It was Gary, the skeptical lawyer from yesterday's meeting, his cool demeanor somehow more intimidating in this intimate setting. Maria took a deep breath, her chest tightening, but then she noticed Rosa's reassuring nod from the corner. "We need to share our stories," she replied, her voice steady. "Each event should reflect the heart of our community. Let's invite local musicians, artists, and chefs to get involved." Slowly, hands began to raise again, each with a new idea, each voice interweaving with the next. A mother spoke up, her eyes blazing with passion. "I can organize a kids' art day. We could teach them and raise money for supplies." A young man jumped in. "I'll handle the social media. We can create buzz about our events, make videos showing what we're all about." As they discussed, Maria felt hope rising like the pulse of the earth beneath her. She could see the shared laughter and ideas swirling like a vibrant tapestry within their little space. In a far corner, someone called for ideas on sponsorships, and soon discussions turned to how they could connect with local businesses to support the center. But just then, the door swung open with a loud bang. A group of the corporate attorneys marched in, their presence slicing through the energy of the room. Gary stood at the forefront, and he surveyed the gathering with hawkish eyes. "What's going on here?" he asked with a sneer, his tone draped in condescension. Maria exchanged weary glances with the crowd. There it was, the looming shadow of doubt creeping back in. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but it was quickly quelled by the warm gaze of Rosa beside her. In that moment, Maria remembered their shared purpose. "We are talking about our community," she said firmly. "We are finding ways to stand together." Gary smirked. And you think little events will stop what's coming? This place will be gone, just you wait. But the crowd rallied, their voices rising in protest against his dismissal. Maria's heart soared as she saw the unity around her, the flashes of determination lighting their faces. They were in this together. "What do we do about them?" someone piped up, eyes turned toward Maria, seeking guidance. Her heart raced. "We show them we won't be silenced. We engage our community even more. Let's launch a campaign, not just against them, but for us, highlighting our stories, our triumphs." As she spoke, Maria felt a surge of resilience wash over her. They may have provoked a powerful enemy, but doubt had no place in their hearts. Now it was not just a fight for a building, it was a fight for their spirit, a celebration of who they were. "Let's rally our folks," Maria called. "We need to show them we're stronger than they think." But deep down, a nagging concern started to form. Would their newfound unity really be enough? As she looked around, uncertainty crept in once more. Could they truly stand their ground against corporate force, or was this an uphill battle they might lose? Tomorrow would reveal what they were truly made of, one way or the other. The next morning, Maria awoke to the sound of rain pattering against her window, a steady rhythm that matched the pounding in her heart. She tossed and turned, flooded with thoughts of the meeting ahead. Last night's surge of confidence had dimmed under the weight of reality. Doubts loomed like storm clouds. Could they really stand against powerful interests? Despite the unity and passion her community had shown, the fear of inadequacy resonated deep within her. Arriving at the community center, the scent of damp earth and fresh coffee filled the air. She paused, taking a moment to ground herself. The room seemed different this morning, tinged with an air of uncertainty that filled the seats with a hush.
Maria noticed familiar faces, but they were expressions of worry instead of hope. Rosa, the cleaning lady, buzzed with energy as usual, wiping down tables and humming a cheerful tune. It was hard to believe how someone so seemingly small could carry such a big presence. Maria smiled at her, drawing strength from her calm demeanor. As the gathering began, Maria stood before the group, her words hesitant as they flowed from her lips. Today is about resilience. It's a chance to dig deeper and find our strength together. She felt the weight of Gary's earlier words strangling her thoughts, wrapped tightly like a cold cloak. "I've been thinking," she continued, glancing at the faces in the crowd. "What if we put on a big event, something that can't be ignored? We can invite everyone, our stories will echo. Let's bring in our local community leaders, artists, musicians, something truly spectacular." But as she spoke, she felt the energy shift again. Quiet doubts whispered between her audience, more than eager eyes cast down. "Is that enough?" a voice chimed in, tinged with fear. "What happens if they don't care? What if it's just a drop in the bucket?" Frustration bubbled within her. She had given everything to nurture this dream, yet now she felt it slipping through her fingers. Before she could respond, Rosa stepped forward, her simple presence commanding attention. "Listen, everyone," Rosa said, her voice smooth but powerful. "You all have wonderful ideas, but I think the heart of our community lies in our connections. You are stronger as a group than any one of you could be alone. It's those ties that will bring the events to life." There was a ripple of silence, an air of contemplation hanging in the room. People started to nod, slowly at first, then more vigorously. "Is there something each of you can do?" Rosa continued, her words wrapping around them. "Concrete, simple actions, small sparks that can ignite our flame. You have to believe in yourselves. Trust that people want to see what we can bring together." Maria watched as sparks of clarity ignited in her friend's eyes. The room seemed to brighten, worries ebbing away little by little. Ideas filled the air, each one stronger than the last. "I can bake for the bake sale," one woman yelled, a smile spreading across her face like sunshine. "I'll be a DJ for the event," shouted another. As they spun ideas off each other, Maria felt something shift. The conversations became lively, laughter peppered throughout. She could see the spark igniting within each person, a determination that began to swell like the rising tide. Suddenly, she realized that their simple community center was about to blossom into something far more beautiful than she could imagine. Yet, just as she let out a sigh of relief, the door swung open again.
This time it was Gary, but instead of hostility, he wore a veneer of curiosity, his expression unreadable.
Eyes turned to Maria, a mix of surprise and trepidation rippling across the room. Was he here to quash their plans once again, or was he seeking something more? She felt her heart race, uncertainty bathing her in cold sweat. Okay, she thought, steeling herself. Let's see what happens next. Maria stood frozen for a moment, the tension palpable in the room. Gary's unexpected presence churned questions within her. Why was he here? Hadn't he made it clear how little he thought of their efforts before? Yet there he stood, the shadow of his earlier indifference now cast in a different light. "Can I help?" Gary finally asked, his words cutting through the anxious murmurs. The group's response was mixed. Some faces twisted in confusion, others danced in hesitant hope. I thought you were against us," Maria stammered, searching his expression for sincerity. "I was," he admitted, "but something's been gnawing at me. I just can't shake the feeling that there's more to your fight than I realized." The noise of everyone shuffling in their seats faded, the room hanging onto Gary's every word. This was unexpected, thrilling even. With a deep breath, Gary continued, "I've seen how deep this goes. My heart says your stories should reach further than the walls of this center. All those whispers and doubts, I felt them too, but maybe, just maybe, there's a way to amplify them." Maria's spirit surged. The idea of this city, their struggles and triumphs, amplified in voices they could project together, thrilled her. "What do you have in mind?" she asked, daring to let hope crack the walls of her uncertainty. "I've got some experience with media," Gary explained, glancing at the group. "I could help you craft a message, something impactful that can spread like wildfire across the city, create buzz, get the leaders and news outlets to listen." The community, inspired by his words, leaned in. They were watching a flicker of possibility take form. Rose's eyes glinted with a spark of joy, and for the first time, a collective fire ignited around Maria. They could make this work. "I love it," a man called from the back. "Let's have a story-sharing night. We can bring in local musicians and invite families to share their experiences. We can build connections, and you can film it." His enthusiasm spread like a spark in dry grass, igniting nods and cheers. "Yes!" Maria shouted, filling the room with the sound of her excitement. "Every one of us has a story, and the world deserves to hear it." As the group rallied together, Maria felt freer, lighter. She could sense the energy rising, bursting with creativity and collaboration. But in the back of her mind, a flicker of hesitation loomed. Was it really that simple? Was their momentum about to shift again? Then, just as ideas flowed like a rushing river, Gary turned to Maria, his expression serious. "I know I was skeptical before, and I understand if you're hesitant about trusting me now.
But if we want to make this work, I'll need your leadership. Are you ready for that?" The weight of his question pressed down on her, and her heart raced. Could she really lead this? Doubts bubbled back to the surface, pushing her to consider the magnitude of it all. Yet, as she glanced around at the faces of her community, filled with renewed hope, she felt the embers of determination rekindle within her. "Let's do it," she heard herself say, the words spilling out as though someone else had spoken them. But as they began drafting plans, the door swung open again, this time to reveal a new figure, unfamiliar yet commanding. Maria could feel the air change, curiosity blended with apprehension washing over the group. What could this newcomer want, and how would they affect their rising tide? "Who are you?" Maria asked, steeling herself for whatever came next. The stranger stepped forward, a smile tinged with mystery playing on their lips. "I think I have something to say that will change everything you thought you knew about how to fight back." The room tightened with uncertainty as the stranger held everyone's gaze. A chill swept through the crowd, blending intrigue with caution. The group fell silent, anticipation hanging thick in the air. "My name is Elena," she said, her voice calm yet strong, "and I've been listening to your plans." She surveyed the group, eyes shining with a fierce light. "There's a lot of potential here, but there's something essential you're missing." Maria's heart pounded. This wasn't just any stranger. It was someone who might see through the chaos and help illuminate their path. "What do you mean?" Maria asked, her curiosities piqued. "A story-sharing night sounds wonderful," Elena began,
But if you want your message to echo through the hearts of the city, you need to dig deeper than surface stories. You need to confront the very systems holding you back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maria could feel the weight of Elena's suggestion settle heavily on her shoulders. What are you suggesting? Use your stories not just to connect, but to challenge the injustices you face directly. Raising awareness is effective, yes, but using that awareness to empower your community behind a clear goal, that's where real change lies. Elena's voice shifted, becoming more impassioned. News outlets love a good narrative. Make your pain a symbol of the fight against oppression. Maria glanced at Gary, questioning. Was this the direction they needed? He nodded slowly, and she felt her spirit lift again. And you can help us with that? Elena's smile deepened, warming the room. More than that, I've worked with advocacy groups before. I know how to navigate the media, how to get your story its due attention. Can we trust you? Rosa chimed in, her brow furrowed with doubt. You're a stranger. What if you're just offering false hopes? Elena held up her hands, quieting the room.
To be honest, I was once in your shoes, she confessed, her voice softening. I scrapped by as a cleaning lady, struggling to make ends meet. But every human I met had a story, a struggle, something that pulled on my heartstrings. One day, I found my voice, and now I fight for the ones who can't. You have stories that deserve to be heard, and I can help you amplify them. Hope flickered again, but it wasn't just hope. They felt urgency. This was them reclaiming their narrative, their worth. Not only for themselves, but for countless others who remained silent. We'll do a workshop, Maria announced, her determination bubbling hot. We'll open our hearts. We'll turn the stories of our struggles into something powerful. Encouragement surged through the group. They nodded, their doubts wavering, melting under the heat of possibility. Let's set a date, Gary added, enthusiasm shining through. Each person began exchanging ideas, excitement mounting as they created a plan that merged Elena's vision with their own. But just then, the door swung open a little wider. An older gentleman stood there, his expression unreadable. He stepped inside, startling everyone. I'm here because I know what you plan to do, he said, his voice steady. And I'm afraid you might be hanged straight for a trap. As the tension climbed once more, Maria felt her pulse quicken. What did he mean by trap? Was their newfound momentum nothing more than an illusion? Would they be thwarted before they even began? What do you mean? Maria asked, her voice a mixture of trepidation and determination. He stepped closer, casting a long shadow across the floor. There's a lot you need to understand before you take this step forward. Maria locked eyes with him, the fear and anticipation swirling together too thick to separate. Would they discover the knowledge that could change everything, or would it be the last thread that unraveled it all? The older gentleman took a breath, his gaze steady and unwavering, as the group leaned closer, hanging on to his every word. I've seen the fallout of movements that didn't take heed. Once a story starts moving, it draws attention, both good and bad. You have to be ready for that. Ready for what? Gary asked, his voice edged with impatience. Maria could see the furrow in his brow, tension bubbling beneath his enthusiasm. Protests often attract not just supporters, but those who oppose what you're trying to do. The moment you raise your voices, you could become targets, not just of the media, but of more dangerous forces. The man looked around the room, ensuring everyone was paying attention. I've seen advocates silenced, faced with threats they didn't see coming. Elena stepped in, her tone calm but serious. You're right to raise these concerns, but awareness can turn the tide. If we act strategically, we can prepare for the backlash. Building a strong, unified front is imperative. Maria felt a chill creep up her spine. Was this man simply trying to instill fear? Or was there genuine wisdom in his warning? So, what do you suggest we do then? She pressed, her heart racing. Do we just stay quiet and hope nobody notices? No, he replied, shaking his head. But you can't rush in without a plan. Gather your stories, make them powerful. Get your close-knit community behind you first before struggling against a larger system. Build your support network before you speak out openly. A murmur of agreement spread through the group, but Maria felt her resolve wavering. They had been so excited, so ready to shout their truths into the open. Now, hesitation wrapped around them like a thick fog. It's about timing, he continued, his eyes locked on her. You need to measure both the risks and the rewards. You're powerful when you unite, but exposing yourselves too soon can cause irreparable damage. Elena stepped back into the conversation, her voice raising as she fought against the tide of fear. Each of you has unique experiences. Combine them. Create a narrative that's as much about triumph as it is about struggle. Show strength through vulnerability. Maria felt a flicker of determination spark deep inside. But what if it's our stories that spark the change? What if we can lead our community out of silence? The room buzzed with tension and the gentle clash of hope against fear. Elena locked eyes with Maria, nodding subtly. That's the heart of it. Your story might just provide someone else with the courage they need, but we need to prepare, tactically and emotionally. What if we create a safe space? Rosa suggested, her voice rising above the murmurs. Before we share, can we meet in smaller groups? We can formulate a collective approach, get to the heart of our fears together. Yes, Gary said, his passion surging back. Let's not just share stories for the sake of stories. Let's build a foundation first, one that can withstand any backlash. The conversation shifted. They began brainstorming ideas for those gatherings, a safe place to map out their fears, highlight strengths, and share their battles. The older gentleman's demeanor softened slightly. That's more like it. Strength in numbers, preparation, and understanding is key. With the future still shrouded in uncertainty, Maria glanced at the door. The weight of this new plan settled on her, a mix of anxiety and anticipation swirling within. She could feel the rhythm of change in the air, but was it enough to sustain them through the challenges ahead? Let's decide on a date for the workshop and the smaller meetings, Maria said, determination rising again. We'll channel our vulnerabilities into strength. Elena and the others nodded, energy rekindling as they refocused on their goal. But just as the excitement peaked, a sharp knock echoed through the room. The door cracked open and a young woman stepped in, her face pale, eyes wide with a rush of panic. You need to hear this.
They're already aware of you. They're coming. An icy grip squeezed Maria's heart. Had they already summoned the very danger they feared? What did that mean for their dreams of change? The room fell silent, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Maria felt her pulse quicken as she stared at the young woman, a stranger now at the center of their gathering. What do you mean they're aware of us? She managed to ask, her voice strained with disbelief. They know about the meetings, the stories, everything. I heard them talking about it at the market, the girl said, her breath coming in sharp bursts. They think you're stirring up trouble, and they're planning to put an end to it before it even starts. Gasps rippled through the room. Maria's heart sank. They had barely begun to share their truths, to create unity, and already a shadow loomed over them. The older gentleman's face grew grim as he exchanged worried glances with Elena, who looked like she was trying to hold it all together. Do you know who they are? He asked, his voice steady, though the concern couldn't hide behind his calm demeanor. No, she replied, shaking her head. But it didn't sound good. I thought you should know. Gary stood up, fists clenched. We can't let them intimidate us. This is exactly why we need to get the word out. We can't stay silent. His passion surged like a wave, crashing against the walls of fear that threatened to engulf them all. But what can we do? Rosa interjected, barely above a whisper, eyes darting nervously. We're not trained for this. We're not fighters. Maria felt that familiar flicker of determination rekindle within her. Maybe we don't need to be fighters. Maybe we just need to be united. Everyone in our community has a story. If we come together, we can create something powerful enough to stand against anyone who tries to silence us. Elena nodded, her expression resolute. Maria's right. Awareness is our tool. If we can share our stories and rally others, they'll see it's not just a handful of voices, but a chorus of change. The young woman, still standing at the doorway, seemed to find strength in the rising tide of passion. But how do we do that? If they're already aware, how do we protect ourselves? By being one step ahead, the older gentleman said, his tone returning to that of a mentor. We won't be silent, but we must be strategic. It might be time to gather those stories and prepare a public statement, something strong that shows your resolve. A small murmur of agreement broke out as each member of the group began to consider their individual experiences. Maria encouraged them, drawing strength from their collective presence. Let's meet tomorrow, she said, firm and loud enough to break through the fog of uncertainty. We'll combine our stories, write them down. We'll show them we are not just targets, we are a movement.
but we have to be smart about how we spread our message.
As disbelief began to fade, hope crept back in. They discussed ideas on how to ensure their safety, suggesting code words, encrypted messages, and using social media to broaden their reach while remaining alert about their surroundings. Yet beneath it all, a familiar weight hung heavy, that gnawing fear of confrontation. Just as Maria felt a slight calm wash over her, a cacophony of voices echoed from outside, a distant rumble growing closer. "Listen," someone whispered as they all turned their heads toward the window. A shadow of once familiar figures emerged, faces shifting in and out of the glow of streetlights. "What do we do?" Gary asked, his earlier bravado fading into uncertainty. Maria gulped down the fear, her heart racing again. "We stand together, but we need to know what we're willing to risk." The knocks on the door multiplied, more insistent now, a storm gathering outside. What could happen if we don't stand firm? With that question lingering in the air, the atmosphere became electric with anticipation, the unknown stretching before them like a dark chasm. Was this the moment they had been preparing for? Or was the storm about to consume them all? Maria stood at the threshold of the gathering storm, her heart pounding and fears swirling like leaves caught in a tempest. The rumbles outside grew louder, but the energy in the room began to shift from one of fear to one of resoluteness. As they huddled together, the unmistakable sound of urgency ignited their spirits. "Everyone, listen!" Maria shouted, her voice cutting through the impending chaos. "This is our moment. We've come so far, and we won't let anyone tear us down just as we're starting to rise." The crowd, filled with familiar faces now brimming with conviction, rallied behind her. They formed a tight circle, linked in solidarity as the knocks grew more aggressive. Outside, shadows danced against the walls, reminding them of the very real forces threatening to overpower their emerging movement. "Hey," Gary stepped forward, his chest rising with newfound confidence. "Let's show them our strength. Let's put everything we've worked for into action. We've got stories to share, dreams to fight for. No fear can take that away from us." With a collective gasp of recognition, they rallied around his words, the spark igniting fresh courage in their hearts. As Maria glanced at Rosa, she saw genuine hope mirrored in her gaze. "You're right, Gary. We need to stand firm," Rosa agreed, her voice trembling at first but gaining momentum, becoming a pledge. Everyone turned to the window as the shadows grew bolder. The unfamiliar figures loomed nearer, their intentions unclear, but that uncertainty held a promise of confrontation that could transform their quiet strength into an undeniable roar. Maria felt the power pulsing through the room, their past struggles swirling together, creating an unbreakable chain. "Let's tell them who we are."
Let's create a banner of our stories, a force they can't ignore. As they started brainstorming ideas, panic transformed into a sense of purpose. They discussed speeches and plans for a community event that would stretch beyond their gathering, a chance to unite friends and neighbors, demanding acknowledgement and respect. Suddenly, a loud crash from outside sent shockwaves through the crowd. "They're coming in!" someone shouted. But instead of retreating, Maria stood her ground. "No! This is our home! This center will not fall! We need to face this together!" As the door swung open dramatically, revealing a group of hired guards and their corporate lawyers, Maria felt an electricity surge through her. They looked down at the small gathering, eyes filled with disdain and arrogance. "Do you really think that your voices can challenge us?" Gary stepped forward to confront them, anger simmering beneath his surface. But Maria felt it, the need for a different approach. They were not just fighting against, they needed to show what they were fighting for. "Wait!" she shouted, surprising even herself. "You think we're weak, don't you? Look around you!" The group's skepticism morphed into confusion as the faces of the community emerged, every age, story, and background displayed in resolve. One by one, stories began to pour forth. A grandmother talked of childcare, a young adult shared how the center rebuilt her life, and a boy stepped up to say how it gave him hope he never had before. Maria watched as the guards' expressions shifted from contempt to wary consideration. The power of these real-life narratives crackled in the air, overwhelming their harsh exterior. "You think we're just numbers? We are families. We are strength. You may dismiss us, but we have each other, and our voices echo louder than you can imagine." The growing tumult of voices swelled together, transforming the air into something unyielding, undeniable. It was indeed a fierce reminder of the bonds they'd forged. As she soared through the final words of her improvised speech, the tension hung in the air like a thick fog.
The corporate guards exchanged nervous glances. They had expected an easy win against a handful of intimidated individuals, not the fortress of defiance rising in front of them. The lead lawyer stepped forward, attempting to restore his authority amid the chaos. This won't end well for you. You have no idea how much power you're provoking. But instead of fear, Maria felt emboldened. We're not backing down. We're rising up. This is our moment. No more silence, no more invisibility. Just then, the crowd collectively shifted, their voices climbing higher and resonating with energy. Maria realized the transformation had happened. They were no longer just a group of individuals, but became an unstoppable wave, the collective heartbeat of a community determined to fight for their place. With that, Maria took a deep breath and prepared to take the next step.
Join us or step away, but know that our fight is just beginning, and our voices won't be silenced again. Together, we are too loud to ignore. The winds shifted outside, intertwining with the promises they shared. As the guards stepped back, momentarily thrown off balance, Maria knew they didn't just stand together. They stood for each other. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a fierce fight, the realization that they were unstoppable when united by purpose. As the guards withdrew for now, she knew their journey had just begun. The path ahead would be challenging, but hope had been ignited, and in that moment, she could see a future brighter than any darkness that loomed. "But, Maria," someone whispered, voice low and uncertain, "what if they come back? What if they're planning something worse?" Waiting for her answer, the group stood at the edge of a new chapter, hearts thumping with expectation. Maria raised her gaze to the horizon, her voice steady as she responded, "If they come back, we'll be ready. We'll continue to share our stories, raising our voices. This is the moment we reclaim our narrative." With their newfound resolve, they stood side by side, palpable energy coursing through them. They would not just fight for a building, but for every life it touched. Their transformation was complete. They were not just a community, they were a movement. As Maria gazed into the eyes of her friends, she felt joy welling up like never before. The future was unscripted, but together they would write their own story, one filled with resilience, love, and unyielding hope for tomorrow. Now was the time to turn their collective strength into action. If you felt moved by this story, this is your moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that helps get these critical messages out to those who need to hear them. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformational journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand that supporting the channel in these ways makes a difference. Together, we can shape a brighter future.